They say your home is your sanctuary. But what if it's not? What if you've built your life inside walls that no longer protect you, but quietly exhaust you? What if the very space meant to bring you peace has become the place where your energy disappears the fastest? You look around and tell yourself everything's fine. The curtains are drawn. The shelves are full. The lights are warm. But deep in your chest, something stays unsettled. And when the world finally goes quiet at night, you feel it, that strange, invisible heaviness that doesn't have a face, but lives in every corner. You clean. You decorate. You distract. But still it lingers. The past. The grief. The objects that hold stories you stopped telling long ago. It's not superstition. It's memory. It's energy. It's weight. Sometimes it's not life that's overwhelming. It's what you've allowed to stay. The old clothes you haven't worn since the breakup. The box of letters you refuse to open but won't throw away. The gifts from people who don't check in anymore. You don't realize it, but every item has a voice. And some of them still whisper things that are no longer true. So maybe the breakthrough you keep begging for isn't trapped in the sky. Maybe it's hiding behind the doors you haven't had the strength to open. Not everything you keep is keeping you safe. You're not breaking down, not in the way people think. You're still getting up, still answering calls, still showing up when it counts. But something's dragging, quietly, constantly, like a pressure you can't name but can't escape. You feel it in the pause before you speak. In the breath you hold when you walk into certain rooms. In the way your shoulders stay tight even when there's nothing visibly wrong. You've carried it for so long that it doesn't feel heavy anymore, just familiar. And that's the danger. Because the moment something becomes familiar, we stop questioning it. We start calling it normal. We convince ourselves that the low-level exhaustion is just life. That the anxiety is just how we function. That the detachment is maturity, not protection. But the truth is, you've adapted to dysfunction. Not because you're weak, but because you had to survive. You made peace with things that didn't deserve peace. You made space for what never respected yours. And over time, the emotional clutter became part of the room. You don't even notice it now, until someone walks in and sees the heaviness you've stopped acknowledging. That's what this is about. Not ghosts, not superstition, but the weight of unresolved experiences still living in your space. The conversations you never had, the grief you never fully faced, the identity you outgrew but didn't know how to release. You learned to keep things quiet so you wouldn't disrupt what little balance you had. But silence can rot too. It doesn't heal just because it's hidden. And the longer you live in it, the more it shapes how you move, how you breathe, how you trust. You may not realize it, but your body remembers everything your mind tries to forget. And your environment, it absorbs that memory. It holds the tone of your breakdowns, the echoes of your regrets, the tension of what you never said out loud. So if something feels off and you can't explain why, look closer. Not outside, but inside your space. What are you still keeping that no longer reflects who you are? What's hiding in plain sight, pretending to be harmless? Because clarity doesn't come from thinking harder. It comes from making space. And to make space, you have to start noticing what shouldn't be there anymore. You've called it strength, this ability to keep going while surrounded by things that drain you. But real strength? It's not in holding it all. It's in knowing when to let go. And maybe the reason you feel stuck isn't because you lack motivation or direction, but because you're living with too much unseen weight that was never yours to carry in the first place. You don't always see the mess, because it's not on the floor. It's not in the drawers. It's not even in the air. It's inside you, and you've been stepping around it for years, moving through your days like everything is fine, while something inside feels crowded. Like you can't breathe as deeply as you used to. Like there's no room left in you for anything new, no matter how badly you want change. You wake up tired, not just in your body, but in your soul. Like your spirit has been carrying something for too long, something you didn't choose but somehow never put down. And the worst part? You've made peace with the weight. You've learned how to function around the flinch. How to stay productive even when your spirit is tight with tension. But some things you've kept, they're not just things. They're loaded with pain, with memories you never fully walked through, with regret you wrapped in silence and tucked away in corners you never revisit. That old photo you don't want to look at but won't throw away. That gift from someone who made you feel small. That one message you still haven't deleted because some part of you thinks letting go means forgetting, or worse, betraying who you were when you needed that person. But this isn't just about objects. This is about energy. This is about the way your nervous system tenses every time you pass that item, that picture, that untouched drawer. This is about the way your stomach drops when a certain memory hits you from the side without warning. Your spirit remembers what your mind avoids. And what you've held on to, whether physical or emotional, is still speaking, still echoing, still taking up space where your peace should live. And maybe that's why you feel stuck. Not because you lack discipline or direction, but because your soul is full of what was never meant to stay. You've been surviving in a crowded house. Not the one you live in, but the one inside you. And when the weight is invisible, you forget to question it. You forget that it's not your responsibility to hold everything that hurt you. You forget that some things are meant to be grieved, not stored. You're allowed to clear it. The photos, the stories, the energy. You're allowed to protect your peace like it's sacred, because it is. You're allowed to choose what gets to live in your spirit, because not everything you've kept carries purpose. Some things only carry pain, and the longer you let them stay, the less room there is for the person you're still becoming. There's a strange silence that lives in certain corners of your home. Not the kind that soothes you, but the kind that watches you. A silence that isn't peaceful, it's heavy, because it knows something you've been trying to forget. It knows the nights you cried there, the arguments that echoed through those walls, the moments you collapsed but told no one. And it remembers. Even when you move on, it doesn't. Even when you convince yourself you're fine, it quietly holds onto what you buried. Because your home, it carries energy. Not just your furniture, not just your things. It carries your breakdowns, your regrets, your attempts to keep functioning when everything inside you was falling apart. You think you're just walking from one room to another, but each space knows the version of you that once stood there, broken, numb, trying. That one corner where you used to sit when the world felt like too much. That one room where you stayed quiet so no one would hear you unravel. You don't talk about those moments anymore, but the room still knows. And the truth is, it's hard to heal in a place that reminds you who you used to be. It's hard to grow when your surroundings are soaked in yesterday's pain. Your mind might forget for a while, but your body doesn't. Your nervous system doesn't. It still flinches at familiar shadows. It still pauses when you pass by that door. It still feels what you haven't spoken. Your home is supposed to be a sanctuary, but sometimes it becomes a mirror, a quiet witness to everything you couldn't say out loud. And you can't just redecorate over grief. You can't cover trauma with new paint or rearranged furniture. Healing isn't just about therapy or prayer or time. It's about walking through your own space and finally seeing what you tried to ignore. It's about standing in the room that holds your past and reclaiming it. Reclaiming you. You don't have to keep living with ghosts just because they feel familiar. You don't have to keep shrinking in spaces that once held your pain. You can clear them, cleanse them, speak into them, and make them yours again, not as a survivor of what happened there, but as the one who decided what happens next. Because your home remembers, but it doesn't have to define you. And when you heal where you live, you finally get to feel safe inside yourself. There's something you felt that you couldn't explain. You walked into a room and your chest tightened. No one said anything. Nothing looked wrong. But something in the air, something unspoken, told you everything you needed to know. It wasn't logic. It wasn't fact. It was energy. And it was real. Because even when people pretend, even when they smile, even when they swear everything's fine, energy tells the truth. It lingers. It clings to the walls, to the silence, to the smallest glance. It doesn't care about the story someone tells you. It remembers the one they didn't. And the same is true in your own life. You've left places that looked beautiful but felt wrong. You've met people who said the right things, but drained something out of you. You've sat in your own room, in your own house, and felt like you didn't belong there anymore. Not because something was broken, but because something was off. We're taught to dismiss that, to second-guess it, to explain it away with logic. But some part of you, the deepest part, knows when something's not safe. Not physically, spiritually, emotionally. The fights, the lies, the secrets, the heartbreak, they leave something behind. Even after the person leaves. Even after you clean up. Even after you say, "I've moved on." Your energy knows what your voice never said. Your nervous system still reacts to what your memory avoids. And if you never clear it, if you never name it, face it, release it, it will keep shaping your life. You'll sleep restlessly. You'll feel anxious in your own home. You'll sabotage peace because peace feels unfamiliar. You'll make choices not from clarity, but from a space that's still carrying noise. You can light candles. You can open windows. You can smile and push through. But if the energy hasn't shifted, nothing really has. You don't need to see it to be affected by it. You don't need proof to be in pain. You're not overreacting. You're not too sensitive. You're just in tune. And that's not a weakness. That's a gift. If you start listening, you already know what feels wrong. You already feel what hasn't been healed. You already sense what doesn't belong anymore. So stop waiting for the evidence. The energy has already told you, and it won't stop telling you until you finally believe it. Because energy doesn't lie. Even when people do. Even when you do. Even when the story you tell yourself is easier than the truth. You don't have to explain it, but you do have to honor it. Because your peace depends on the things you're willing to confront. Even when they're invisible. You've learned how to endure. You've learned how to carry. You've learned how to keep things alive long after they've stopped giving you life. And somewhere along the way, you started calling it strength. You wore the weight like a badge. You told yourself holding on meant you were loyal. That suffering in silence was noble. That pain was proof you still cared. But you know what no one told you? Letting go is harder. Letting go takes more strength. Letting go isn't weakness, it's war. Because when you've built your identity around holding on, to people, to memories, to guilt, to stories you never asked for, then release feels like death. Not of something else, but of who you were inside all that pain. We don't keep things because they serve us. We keep them because they're familiar. Even if they hurt. Even if they shrink us. Even if they stopped fitting years ago. Some of the pain you still carry isn't because it's still happening. It's because you made it sacred. You placed it on an altar. You prayed over it. You told yourself, "This is who I am now." And letting go of it feels like betrayal. Like you're abandoning a part of yourself. Like if you release that pain, you're saying what happened didn't matter. But that's not the truth. Letting go isn't forgetting. It's remembering differently. It's saying, I don't need to suffer to prove I've lived. I don't need to ache to stay connected to something that once shaped me. I can honor the story without keeping the wound open. You were never meant to hold everything. Not every promise. Not every person. Not every version of you that helped you survive. Some things got you through a season, but that season is gone. And now, the very thing that once kept you safe is what's keeping you stuck. There's a sacred silence in letting go, a quiet kind of strength that doesn't scream or prove, just releases, just breathes, just says, "This no longer belongs to me." You won't feel free the moment you release it. You'll feel fear. You'll feel the ache of the unknown. You'll reach back for what's familiar, even if it never loved you back. That's part of it. That's the spiritual work. But if you stay with it, if you allow that sacred space to open where the old weight used to live, you'll find something you forgot you had. Lightness, clarity, a sense of your own soul, unburdened and breathing again. Letting go isn't walking away. It's finally coming home. To yourself. Look around you. Not just at the walls. Not just at the shelves. Look at what you've chosen to keep. The old notes. The silent numbers in your phone. The clothes you haven't worn in years. The habits that never made you better but never left you alone. They're not just things. They're answers. To questions you didn't know you were asking. To fears you never wanted to name. You think you're holding on to memories. But most of the time it's fear. Fear of who you'll be without them. Fear of the space they'll leave behind. Fear that if you let go, you'll be exposed. Because if you remove the noise, the objects, the patterns, the people who no longer serve you, what's left? Silence? Stillness? Yourself? And is that enough? We keep what comforts our fears. We keep people around not because they see us, but because they distract us from seeing ourselves. We keep the clothes from another life because we're scared this one isn't working. We keep going back to familiar chaos because peace feels too unfamiliar to trust. But the truth is, every single thing you keep, every pattern you repeat, is a mirror, not of who you are, but of what you're scared to face. And that's not weakness. That's being human. Because sometimes fear whispers, "Don't change a thing." Because if you do, you risk being alone. You risk being forgotten. You risk stepping into a version of yourself you don't fully recognize yet. But here's the truth you've been avoiding. You already feel the cost. In your body, in your mind, in the quiet moments when everything looks fine, but you feel like a stranger inside your own life. You're not just surrounded by stuff. You're surrounded by choices, by echoes of fear you didn't know had a voice. And if you want to transform, it won't start with a new plan. It will start with a confrontation, with standing in front of what you've kept and asking, "What does this say about me? What have I been scared to let go of, and why?" Because what you keep is telling a story, one you're still writing. And if you're not careful, fear will be the author. But you can reclaim the pen. You can make different choices. You can let go, not because you're heartless, but because you're finally ready to be whole. Transformation begins not when you get more, but when you finally ask what's been weighing you down. And you decide, I'm not living in a museum of my fears anymore. I'm building a future that doesn't need to be padded with the past. 8. You don't wake up one day and realize you're drowning. You just keep standing in water that rises slowly. It seeps into your life quietly, not like a flood, but like a leak you learn to ignore. That's how the familiar becomes dangerous. Not because it comes in screaming, but because it doesn't. Because it feels like home. Because it knows your name. Because you've memorized its rhythm, even when it hurts. It's the relationship that drains you, but you stay, because it's been years. It's the job that suffocates you, but you convince yourself you're lucky to have it. It's the friend who crosses every boundary, but you forgive them again and again, because history feels heavier than healing. We tell ourselves, It's not that bad. We learn to survive the noise. We explain the pain away. Because to walk away would mean facing the unknown. And that scares us more than suffering. That feels more dangerous than staying in what's slowly killing our spirit. But here's what no one tells you. Familiar pain can feel safer than unfamiliar peace. Because we don't just get used to dysfunction. We build our lives around it. We decorate it. We excuse it. We even love it because it's what we know. But what we know isn't always what we need. And somewhere deep inside you, you feel it. That quiet ache that whispers, "This isn't right." The exhaustion that comes from pretending you're fine. The numbness you mistake for peace. That's your soul trying to get your attention. That's the part of you that hasn't given up. Because familiar doesn't mean safe. It doesn't mean right. It doesn't mean worthy of your loyalty. The truth is, many of us were raised in chaos and called it normal. We were taught that suffering was strength. That endurance was love. That silence was maturity. But at some point, you have to wake up. At some point, you have to decide that your spirit is worth protecting. And yes, walking away will hurt. But staying will cost you everything sacred. You don't need to destroy the past. You just need to stop letting it decide your future. So ask yourself, what have I called normal that's actually been the slow erosion of my peace? Because healing isn't always a bright light. Sometimes it's a quiet decision to stop answering the door when pain comes dressed like comfort. And in that moment, when you finally choose discomfort in the name of growth, when you finally walk away from what's always felt like home but never felt like love, that's when you'll know. You didn't lose yourself. You just stopped living in places where you were never seen. You ever sit in silence and still feel like your mind is screaming? You're not broken. You're not lost. You're just full. Stuffed with noise that was never yours. Conversations you should have walked away from. Memories that never stopped echoing. Objects that carry energies you didn't consent to. And emotions you never had time to name. You're not confused, you're crowded. Crowded with guilt, responsibility, performance, and pain. It builds up, quietly, invisibly. You keep moving, keep doing, keep showing up, until you start wondering why everything feels so heavy. But what if the fog in your mind isn't from a lack of answers? What if it's from too much weight? Too much buildup? Too many unopened doors in your spirit? Too many unspoken truths sitting in your chest like stones? We carry so much so quietly. We clean our homes more than we cleanse our hearts. We sweep the floor, but never sweep through our spirit. We dust the surfaces, but ignore what's stored in the corners of our energy. And eventually, we forget what clarity even feels like. Peace becomes a memory instead of a practice. Stillness becomes terrifying instead of healing. Because when we finally sit down with ourselves, we're sitting in a space we never really made sacred. So let me tell you something you've probably known deep down. If your world feels heavy, if your head feels loud, if your spirit feels foggy, it's time to cleanse. And no, not just a quick breath or a walk. I'm talking about a sacred emptying. Going through your space and removing what holds grief. Going through your energy and releasing what isn't yours to hold. Going through your memory and deciding what no longer deserves a seat at your table. Because clarity isn't about finding the answer. It's about making space for it. And the truth is, it's hard to hear yourself when you're buried beneath what everyone else has thrown on you. Their expectations, their emotions, their chaos, their unfinished business. You deserve to walk into your life with space to breathe. You deserve a room that doesn't trigger your past. A mind that isn't racing just to survive. A heart that isn't gripping onto everything it's afraid to release. And yes, letting go will feel like loss at first. Cleansing will feel like confrontation. Because facing what you've avoided isn't easy. But you are not meant to carry what was never meant for you. And when you finally release it, when you finally make space, you'll realize it was never confusion. It was just too crowded to hear your own voice. And in the quiet that follows, that's where your clarity will rise. Some things came into your life quietly, but they stayed loud. A shirt that still smells like a home that hurt you. A necklace given as an apology you never asked for. Words spoken in a tone that felt like love, but carried the weight of control. And smiles, the kind that made you feel small, even while being praised. Not all gifts were given in love. And not all love was ever truly love. Sometimes what was handed to you wasn't for your good. It was for their guilt, their need to feel needed, their way of making sure you never left. And maybe you were too young to name it, too loyal to question it, too tired to reject it. So you kept it. You said, "Thank you." You called it special. You convinced yourself it meant something beautiful, because the alternative was too painful to face. But now you're older. Now you're aware. And deep down you feel it. That thing, that gift, that belief, that memory, it doesn't sit right anymore. It doesn't bring peace. It doesn't carry light. It feels like a weight in your chest that you've learned to ignore. You don't owe space to what came into your life wrapped in guilt. You don't owe love to what was disguised as obligation. You don't have to carry the heirlooms of someone else's pain. It doesn't matter how long it's been, how expensive it was, how much they cried when they gave it. If it was handed to you through manipulation, through fear, through control, it was never truly yours to begin with. Sometimes, the most violent thing about pain is how beautifully it pretends to be a gift. And you accepted it, not because you were weak, but because you were surviving. You were trying to be kind, trying to avoid conflict, trying to protect someone else's feelings while ignoring your own. But this is your season of reclaiming. You get to return what no longer serves your healing. You get to throw away the just-in-case burdens. You get to say, "This was never mine," and mean it. Freedom doesn't always come in big leaps. Sometimes it begins when you look at something and whisper, "I don't need to keep this anymore." And when you release it, that object, that memory, that tie, you're not being ungrateful. You're being honest. You're choosing peace over performance, clarity over confusion, healing over habit. Because you were never meant to build a life out of things that hurt to hold. And no, you don't have to keep what was given in pain. Not anymore. You don't realize how heavy your life has become until you start putting things down. Every crowded corner, every drawer you avoid, every unopened box. They're not just things you own. They're chapters you haven't closed. Questions you've been too afraid to answer. Stories you've told yourself so many times, you started to believe they made you stronger. But strength isn't in holding on to what suffocates you. It's in giving yourself permission to let the air in. To create emptiness where something dead once lived. To stand in a quiet room and feel a peace you didn't know you were missing. You think cleaning is about tidiness, about impressing visitors or feeling organized. But deep down, it's about survival. Because your environment is an X-ray of your mind. Every pile of clutter is a postponed decision. Every object you don't want to touch carries a feeling you don't want to feel. And healing doesn't happen when you ignore the mess. It happens when you turn toward it. When you sit in the discomfort of what you find. When you ask yourself why you've kept things that remind you of who you no longer are. Clearing space isn't easy. It's an act of honesty. It's looking at what you once loved and admitting it no longer loves you back. It's noticing how much of your energy goes into avoiding what you know needs to change. But when you start to clear, something shifts. The silence that used to feel empty starts to feel alive. The space that looked barren begins to feel sacred. Your mind, once cluttered with half-remembered pain and hidden guilt, finds room to breathe. Your spirit, long pressed against the walls of what you thought you had to keep, begins to stretch. The space you clear doesn't stay empty. It fills with possibilities you couldn't see before. Moments of rest, bursts of creativity, a softness in your chest that tells you it's okay to slow down. You are not the things you keep. You are not the stories they whisper. You are the space that holds them, and you get to decide what stays and what goes. Because the truth is simple. The space you clear becomes the space you heal. And every inch of room you reclaim outside yourself is another inch of freedom you reclaim inside your soul. You don't realize how much weight you've been carrying until you finally set it down. And when you do, when you finally let go, there's a moment of stillness that follows. It's not loud. It doesn't rush in with fireworks or applause. It just is. A quiet space. Open. But waiting. This is the part no one prepares you for. Because we talk so much about letting go, but rarely about what comes after. That strange, unfamiliar stillness. When you've stopped fighting what's behind you, but haven't yet seen what's ahead. And in that space, you will feel the urge to fill it, to replace the silence with noise, the absence with something, anything, even if it's not right, not healthy, not true. Because empty can feel scary. But what if it's not emptiness? What if it's room? Room for peace. Room for clarity. Room for things that aren't born from pain or pressure, but from truth, from wholeness, from alignment. You see, space is sacred, not just in your home, but in your spirit. And clearing it isn't just about discarding the past. It's about declaring that you are ready for what's next. But next doesn't arrive in chaos. It doesn't fight for a spot in a crowded room. It comes quietly. It looks for where it's welcomed. It needs space to land, space to breathe. And that's what you've been doing, whether you've realized it or not. Every drawer you emptied, every memory you released, every habit you confronted, you were preparing for something. For the life that fits who you are now, not who you had to be to survive. You've cleared space, and now it's time to protect it. Not everything gets to enter this version of you. Not every person, not every thought, not every urgency. This space, this stillness, is not a gap. It's a garden. So things will begin to grow, but not from force, from alignment, from readiness. Because when you finally stop filling every corner with fear, you make room for peace to take up residence. And when peace moves in, so does everything meant for you.